This time last year, I uploaded a video on this channel called I'm Still Here, Brazil's Devastating Masterpiece, which was a little review talking about Walter Sell's hit film I'm Still Here, which was obviously a huge part of Brazilian cinema. You couldn't go anywhere last year online with anything to do with like award season without seeing a million Brazilian flags, which is a great thing to see people so passionate about their country's success in these sort of things. It was great to see, especially when the film went on to win International Feature at the Oscars. However, in that video I also said that I was going to do my best to do some homework and sort of dive deeper into the history of Brazilian cinema, catch up on a lot of great films that I just had no idea existed. And if you're expecting me to say I did that in this video, I deeply apologize because I kind of just lost track of time. That being said, I can positively say I kind of love The Secret Agent. Now again, I was meant to watch so much Brazilian cinema over this past year, never got around to it. I did see Basic Sanitation, the movie, which also stars the great Fernando Torres, but that's just about it. Oh my god, I didn't even fucking clock that Wagner Moura was also in that movie. However, with everything that happened with I'm Still Here last year, getting all this praise and awards and love, I think people in the sort of area of award season and the online space to do with it realized that I need to take Brazilian cinema a lot more seriously, myself included. Honestly, there's no greater example of that than seeing the same thing happen this year with all of the praise and love that has been showered over The Secret Agent. Be prepared because I'm probably going to butcher some names in this video. The Secret Agent comes from director Kleber Mendonça Filho. The film follows Marcelo, a technology teacher in 1977, as he moves from Sao Paulo to Recife during Carnival to escape his violent past and start completely over. As we follow through the story, he discovers that the city is just in absolute uproar and chaos, and his neighbours begin to get a little bit suspicious on who he really is. Now, obviously, this time last year I had no idea what the fuck this movie was. It premiered at Cannes, and it's not a festival I typically keep all that much up to date with, and when I was keeping up to date with it, I didn't really pay much attention to this film. My mistake. When this began to gain so much more attraction in the awards function, and I saw that comments for everything were littered with these Brazilian flags, it piqued my interest. I was like, I've seen this one before, I know where this goes, and all praise to the Brazilians because they just never quit on trying to promote this sort of stuff. Honestly, that's one of the biggest praises I can give this before even getting really into the film, is that they will make sure everyone and anyone that is remotely interested in the awards circuit will get around to seeing these films, and I'm glad I did. The film stars a grand handful of Brazilian actors and actresses, but of course front and center is Wagner Moura, who plays sort of three different characters, two-ish I guess, but he's doing a lot of work with trying to give several different performances throughout. At points when we see him in the past, he's someone that's so full of hope and committed to his job, whereas when we see him for a large chunk of the film, there is this person that, as much as they want to get the truth out there, you can see this sort of deflated and defeated nature rested within their soul, which is of course explained throughout the film as we gain more and more knowledge of this person's past. And the character that he plays at the end, I won't really get into all that much, but it's completely different from these other two, and it definitely solidifies him as one of the best performances of the year. There's a reason why he's in that best actor category, and I would not be angry if he won it. I would honestly be kind of pleased. I know there's a lot of anger stimulated towards Chalamet beating him. You know, may the best man win. Before even kind of getting into anything that I desperately want to praise about this movie, I want to highlight just some kind of thoughts I had walking away with it, because there is a lot to digest of this. It's a 2 hour and 40 minute long Brazilian film with a subject matter that honestly I myself am not all that in depth of having knowledge over. I had fun kind of picking apart what was going on here, and I will happily say that the first hour is going to lead so many people off balance for what they expect this to be, myself included. I was sat there for the first 60 minutes questioning where on earth this film could be going, and then by the time I got to the end, it felt kind of inevitable that we would be in the place that we are. Yet I was still somewhat kind of surprised about how we got here. Obviously, I have to compare this a tiny bit to I'm Still Here, and a great way to do that is talk about a great plot device which is in both films, which is the idea of memory and how it can be portrayed in two different lights. With something like I'm Still Here, the idea of memory is much more organised and put together. As much as the film lingers so much on the past, it's something that can be put back together and portrayed exactly in the light that it was actually portrayed, with some things being really great, full of these happy memories, specifically in the first 20 minutes of the film, and then as we go on in the runtime, things start to deteriorate and things get worse and worse, and it's that memory that is so lucidly portrayed in a way that shows exactly what happened in the way that it happened. Whereas something like The Secret Agent is done in the exact other way. The film feels disjointed and messy, but not in a critical way. It's clearly done with some form of purpose. A great way to describe it, which I saw on a post online, was that the idea of memories, time, place, and culture of a location can kind of be put together in some way, like a carnival. They're influenced by all these urban legends, stuff like the hairy foot, and that's why the film, to me, is kind of all over the place in a really beneficial way for what it's trying to do. Keeps you constantly on its toes, and even the idea of going back and revisiting this, I know that I'd pick up on so much more things that I wouldn't have even noticed in the first place, which is, you know, a great thing that you can praise more or less any film for, having rewatchability, especially one that for me is not my native language, and also is like so long and borderline quite slow. That whole first hour, as I mentioned, is kind of all over the place in a way, and I think this is entirely intentional to reflect on the life of Wagner Moura's character Marcello, as we see what he was thrown into. He was this guy that was living a completely normal life, and through all of the things that happen in his life that particularly he didn't really want to happen, he becomes this sort of portrayal of a secret agent, which is kind of where the film gets its title from. But that's just some initial thoughts coming out of the film. There's probably like a whole analysis video that could be put out of this, and who knows, maybe one day I'll get around to it, but highlighting some of the things that I really enjoyed about it. The Secret Agent kind of feels like a film that it doesn't exist anymore. I'm Still Here is kind of in the same ballpark, but at the end of the day you can tell that that's more of a modern film. It's a film that came out in the 2020s, whereas if The Secret Agent had released in something like the 1970s, I would have completely believed you. It has this sort of atmosphere about it that feels timeless, but also being stuck in a certain region of time, with all of its performances being insanely subtle. It's very slow burn approach to telling the story. And of course its stunning cinematography that outlines some of the greatest cities in Brazil, showing them as these sort of bleak areas that also have these tiny bits of hope and beauty behind them. Even that whole section about the hairy leg, which I'm not going to give any more away than that, feels like something that is so lost in time. It's linked to a specific era. You would not have believed my shock when I googled all of that stuff and realised just how factual some of it was with the myth. Not that there was a real hairy leg kicking about, but the fact that people bought into this because that's what the newspapers were telling them. It's a great portrayal of journalism leading to false narratives throughout the public, and I feel like this video is probably just as disjointed as the film, with the way I'm jumping from this to that, but I just have 100 million thoughts racing about this film because, quite frankly, I saw it 2 weeks ago and I can't stop thinking about it. A weird thing to say as well for me is that this has some really great needle drops hidden throughout, which is weird in the sense that I am not familiar with like any of this music. Obviously it's completely new to me. The way that some of the music choices were placed throughout all of this works in a strange, sort of bizarre and disjointed way. One of my favourite scenes in the film as well is a scene featuring Udo Kier, who I had no idea would have been in this film. It was quite shocking to see this being his final ever role on the big screen, but it's always a warm welcome to see him, and it kind of resonated to a sense of seeing this character played by Wagner Moura being surrounded by like some of the worst people in the world, just showing how corrupt and fucked the whole government system was at that time in Brazil, and seeing characters like Udo Kier's taking the beating for stuff that quite frankly was completely undeserved to them, just because these people in power knew that there was nothing that could have been done to stop them from being dickheads. The fact that this film isn't based on like factual character or one individual is also quite a powerful move in my opinion. The idea of someone watching this and going, wow, this felt so grounded, I want to know more about what happened, and googling it and realizing that this is not an individual story, but in fact hundreds of thousands of individual stories of these people getting in shit because they kind of slightly opposed what one government or one company was doing, and then getting their life completely turned upside down because of this. It's just like so well thought out and original. My one great issue I have with it, which I've mentioned kind of slightly throughout the video, is that at times it did move along a little bit too slow for my liking. However, I do think that this mindset would improve upon a rewatch. Now that I kind of understand where it's going in certain parts, I feel like I would be so much more understanding towards why some of these scenes have been chosen to be a lot slower and a lot more thought out than maybe other bits of the film. But that is my initial thoughts on The Secret Agent. It is a fantastic time, and quite frankly, if it hasn't premiered near you yet, hold off, because this is probably one of the most important and fascinating films of the entire year, and I hope it does pretty well at the Oscars. And even if it doesn't, who gives a fuck, because people are loving it anyway. Once again, another Brazilian filmmaker has knocked it out of the park with a truly unique and interesting story to dive deep into, and if this time next year another film has been honoured at the Oscars or during award season, and I feel the need to talk about it again because I feel that passionate about it, then I promise by then I will have watched more films from Brazil. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, if I'm right, if you agree, if you disagree, what your opinion on The Secret Agent was and how you felt about some of its choices, and I will see you in the next one.
Para todo mundo no Brasil assistindo isso agora, viva o Brasil, viva a cultura brasileira. Thank you very much.